Welcome to the Totally Awesome Fishing Show. Now, it would be easy to think you can use the same basin techniques for fishing fast rivers, slow rivers, even tidal rivers, but you'd be wrong. For instance, a slow river, you need to adapt your float if you're using float, or even your ledger. So you're going to need a few tips on how to get the best from that type of flowing river. Let's get down and talk to a man and hear what he has to say on this subject. Tips for fishing slow rivers. And that place on the River Thames is right by the road here. I'm overlooking the bridge, just downstream of me, a place called Lechlade. And in fact, it's pretty convenient because just across the way there, it's Lechlade angling. So I've got absolutely no excuse for not stocking up on plenty of bait. Now, I've never fished here before, but they sent me round to this side. They said this swim and a couple of others further upstream can be pretty good for getting a good mixed bag, different small fish. Only fun fish, but listen, there's no reason why you can't attach the same significance to catching a small fish as you can a big one. Of course, we want to catch big fish, but hey ho, doesn't work that way, does it? So, what I'm going to set up with is going to use a 13-foot match rod, just a standard one. It's got a very fast tip to it though. Fixed spool reel, but I think it's 5 or 6 pound line on it, and then I'm going to be using, I could use a waggler float. It's been very early on it's very windy. Downstream wind is never good. I'm going to be using an Avon float there, fixed top and bottom, and shirt button style with the shot there, if you can see those. A hook link, which is a size 16 barbless hook to 3 pound breaking strain, and that's what I'm going to be using. Also going to be using an 11-foot, £1.25 test curve quiver tip rod here, fixed ball, 6 pound line, running ledger here with a standard open end feeder, purely because I can throw that downstream and there might be something like a bream down there or a chub. I don't know because I've never fished it before. Split shot to hold the swim feeder, hook link, and I'm going to tie on a little bit big, about a size 12 wide gate there, bunch of maggots sending down the bottom of the swim. Where I'm ground baiting, anything down the bottom of the swim should locate that one first. It's going to be noisy here, people, because I'm right on the road, but we'll plough on. Ground bait, I'm using a Bailey's #1. It's called horse feed. Just damp it, do not wet it. If you wet it, it goes like anything you fill in road, in potholes. You can fill potholes and concrete with these things when they're hard. It will go down, it will break up eventually, but it's very, very, very sticky. You can break it up a bit by mixing, say, 50-50 with bran. But if you just damp it, it's ideal for going in that feeder. So that's what I'm going to be using. Bailey's #1. Probably won't get in tackle shops, get it from agricultural feed suppliers. That's just what I'm using. But for loose feed, I find maggots are expensive. But I've been using these Skwettins pellets. You buy a huge, great big bulk bag for a fraction of the price that you pay in small bag size. And I've mixed some 2mm and 4mm together, which is not a wise move. I would suggest putting them in separate boxes, because I've noticed when you catapult 2 and 4mm, 2mm falls out first, 4mm goes out too far. So basically, wherever you think you're baited, you're not. Take my advice, I've just made this mistake, don't mix them together. Keep the 2 and the 4mm both separate, and you can loose feed these like you would do maggots. Little pouch from every now and then, tumbling, slow sinking through the water, just regular coarse pellets they are. Beats buying too many maggots. On the hook, they tell me in a Lechlade tackle shop, red maggots do the business here. I'm a lover of white maggots, but let's see what they turn out, see whether they know what they're doing. I mean, they live right on the water. You can see the actual tackle shop virtually, well, it's virtually in the water. Run by Lee over there, and his mum, I think it is. So they give you advice, definitely, if you want to come down here, just get a day ticket and go fishing. Red maggots, they also gave me the tip of, I normally use 2 or 3 to cover the hook. They say singles will be better. Of course, you will get the smaller species as well, and they tell me some bleak in here. Well, it must be years since I caught bleak, I must admit. So it'd be nice. I'm well up the Thames here, and should be some different species. Let's just crack on, and I'm going to bait up a bit out in the middle, put the feeder down the bottom end of that, and I'll probably maybe a rod or 2 length out. I'm going to start getting that loose feed in, see if we can't get a few different species trying to show you. It's all good fun. It's what fishing used to be about. Well, it still is for me anyway. Right, feeder filled up, 4 maggots on there. I'm going to put this in the middle of the swim, at the bottom end of the swim, and hopefully it sort of fishes for itself. It's just like bonus fishing, and then I can concentrate on the float on the inside here, maybe 2 rod lengths out, that's what they told me over in the tackle shop, and just see if I can get the fish going on the little and often basis. I've already put some balls of ground bait in here, but just be aware there are a lot of swans, obviously from the pub over there, people feed them. I've found the way round it. You throw a loaf of bread down the other end of the, on the other side of the bridge, come up quick, pile your ground bait in, everything is sweet. Fishing down the bottom of the swim over here on the right, you can also, as well as have a central swim there that I've baited up with the main flow in the deepest part, I can come in just out where I'm float fishing there on a ledge, and that's where I'm hopefully finding, well, might pick up some roach, dace, who knows. You can also, oh, bite on the quiver tip then. You can also come in very, very close, let the float just do what we call, it's like laying on, it's called, just so the float's at a slight angle, the bait's definitely on the bottom, and I should, with a bit of luck, be able to pick up some gudgeon there as well. That's really right close here on the inside, so there's almost 3 lines, and I can bait all 3, feed all 3 lines, and then work out where I'm getting the bites from. Just in there, the gudgeon are really likely to be on, say, single maggots, just laying the float on about a rod length out in about 3 feet of water, inside the main flow, just off the edge of what we call the slack. Oh, why do you make me talk to you? I missed the bite then. You guys probably saw that. Go again. So I just barely cast out, and I'm laying it back in, just on the inside of that flow there. You can just hold the float at the top, so you're almost supporting the float, and then you should get a good bite. In fact, you can almost lift the float up. It's a bit like pole fishermen do when they hold that float absolutely dead still in one spot. And of course the benefit is, if I put any of those pellets, 2 or 4 mil pellets in there, and I put in some maggots as well, they're likely to be targeted in much more, well, 2 foot square area. I can get it really, really small. Oh, I missed another one. There's definitely fish down there. I think I'll put a bit of feed in. Don't forget to allow the catapult. You want to go in 3 feet of water with a slow flow like the Thames. You want to go about 4 feet upstream of where the float's going to finally settle. Oh, here we go. Oh, what an angler. What an angler, or is it what a dangler? And there we go. That, in case some of you don't know, is a small dace. Well, it was till it fell off the hook. Come here. Oh. That was targeted twice. That was targeting him just on the inside where I told you. Pop him in the keep net, see if we can get another one and not drop it. So just cast out the edge of the current, just draw it back in a little bit till it just hangs on that edge of the riverbed there, and just hold it. If it's flowing fast, you won't be able to do it, but you can bump it down very, very slowly. It gives fish like gudgeon more chance to get hold of it. Feels like a fish on a feeder here, guys. And it is indeed. Oh, can't stop catching. Got it in the kisser. There we go. Swim feeders there. As you can see, a perch, and it appears a round of applause from the people in the pub. Has anybody out there ever had a small perch that hasn't swallowed the bait? It's a rarity, is it not? In he goes. Inside rod again, guys. That very inside line just laying on there. And another small perch. Of course, it could be said the reason I like this swim is because there's a certain sign on the opposite bank there which might come in dead handy when I pack up fishing. A pub. And it's just over the bridge. Well, well, well. The other thing you can do is you can split between bites slow up on the inside and then move to the outside line and just see if any fish have moved in on that area. And that's basically what I'm doing now. Got a little bit quiet on the inside, so I'm using the same float to go on the outside. Now, another problem. Downstream wind. It's the bane of all float fishermen on a river. An upstream wind actually does help you a bit. It holds the float back. A downstream wind will drag it through too... I lost it. Will drag it through too fast. And that's what's happening now. I'm just going to go back out there again on that middle line. Now that's what I find difficult. Matchmen don't. If you have a pole, you can fish the same line down all the time. But when you're float fishing on a big, wide, slow to medium flowing river, I find it difficult judging exactly what is the middle line that I'm feeding. I am missing the bites out, but at least I'm getting bites. That's 2 bites in 2 drops there, guys. I feel a fish coming. Alternately, you've got to be aware that with the different species here, fish like gudgeon can be hard on the bottom, just like miniature little barbel. Fish like roach, dace, they like the bait just a little bit off the bottom, say 3 or 4 inches, maybe the dace closer to the bottom, roach a little bit up. So you can keep, once you've plumbed the float and you've got the right depth of the river, you're not dragging too much and you're not too... Oh man, I'm missing some bites here. Do you know, I think I'm going to go what they said. Lee said, get rid of the double maggots and use a single maggot. Now, I could go down to an 18. The problem being, with my eyesight and my age, I have absolutely a 0 chance of trying a hook on an 18. Spade end or otherwise. I need 3 tied spade end hooks. Now, that's a single maggot. Let's just see if Lee's correct there. That single maggot, if I'm missing bites on the double, could be single doing the trick. There we go, another species, guys. That's 3 species, and this one is like a mini barbel. That's a gudgeon. So that's a bottom feeding fish. That tells me if he's got a chance of getting the bait. If I want stuff like roach, I should be starting to bring my bait off the bottom, shallow in the float a little bit. And if I want something like bleak, I have to go nearer the surface. So there's 3 different layers really that you can work through, depending which particular species you want. And those are definitely bottom dwellers, really like a little baby barbel, great to catch. Years ago I believe we used to eat them. We mustn't go there, we mustn't put the idea into some people's heads, must we? I shan't be eating it. It's a nice British fish. It's going back in the river. Via the keep now, of course. There we go, it's different 4th species there. And that's really sort of target species we're after. Is the roach. Apparently they go to £2 here, according to Lee. But that's just an average size one. And that was just by shallowing the float a little bit after catching that gudgeon, going a little bit shallower. Well, there we go. That one looks a bit like a hybrid actually. It doesn't actually look like it's best of barbless hooks, they fall off. I think there might be a little skimmer that some of the scales came off. Might be a roach bream hybrid. But looks like another species. Here we go, guys, really nice roach there. That is what you come up to the River Thames for. Fish like that, on a float, best way you can catch them. That's a novel way of catching them, guys. Just struck when the float went under, tail first. I think that's the first time I've ever done that with a small fish. And of course, he's fallen off. There's a roach or a rudd. Another nice little roach. which brings me to yet another tip. Luckily for me, I can still stick with the Avon float. Avon and stick floats, those attached by top end and bottom end, generally we'll be using with a line on the surface of the water and you're holding the float back. Now, with the downstream wind, that wind will be pushing against a bow in the line and dragging the float through too fast. You can overcome this by using a bodied waggler, which is bottom end only, therefore you can sink a bit of line and it goes through the whole rig, the float and your line at the same pace as the current. Of course you need a nice wide even current. If it's swirling like a fast water, it's not going to work because you can still get bellies in the current, in the line from the current, similar to the wind. On a nice even, stretch of water like we got here on the Thames, waggler fishing, very successful, especially in windy conditions. I'm actually quite grateful the wind's dropped, so I don't have to change because I hate shotting floats. Actually, building quite a decent little bag up here. Getting roach, dace, perch. I've had a couple of skimmers. Couldn't show them to you because there's people with kids, dogs, everything going past. Just too noisy. But I've got them in the keep net. Hopefully show you at the end of the trip. Another totally awesome tip. If you're casting slightly upstream, don't forget to take a few turns on the reel just to keep pace with the float that's coming down towards you. Alternately, if you're casting straight out, the current's going to be taking your float downstream. You need to open the bail arm of the reel and just gently let line go down every so often, keeping pace with the float but hopefully without moving it. If you don't, the float will go down but it will start to drag in on a slight curve, pulling you off that all-important line of feed which you've already put out there. Missed it, but totally awesome tip, number 235. I've now easily outfished the feeder by using the float close in, so the fish aren't at the bottom, but I also want to try down there by running the float through with a moving bait. They might not necessarily want the feeder, so I'm now going to put the feeder at the top end of the swim. That frees up the bottom end, so I continue on the same line I've been feeding with the float. I can trot it right down. I might just pick off the extra few fish that that are down there feeding at the bottom end of the swim and they don't want the feeder. We'll find out. Oh, I love it, mate. Another species for you guys. That one is a bleak, just a small bleak, which I haven't caught for many years, and they used to be really prolific on the Thames. Fantastic pike baits. We used to use them in weir pools, and you can see lovely silverfish there, like a little herring, and they've got an upturned jaw at the front, but generally feeding on the surface. Yet another species. I must be on about 5 or 6 by now. Just goes to show you, just adapt, watch those lines of feed, close in, medium range, far. You should come up with something. Right, we're getting near the end of the session. One finally, totally awesome tip. If you're using barbless hooks, very often on a long trot down with a float, you'll find, winding in slowly, if you haven't had a bite, there's no maggot on the end. It's obviously wriggled off because there's no barb on the hook. You can overcome this by using dead maggots. So on any trip you've got, just keep a few frozen ones back, put your live one on first, and then tip the dead one. That will stop the live one wriggling off. Well guys, I see the local rowing clubs coming in opposite me. I think that's a sign to pack up. Let's get the keep net out and I'll just show you actually what I caught through the day.